Hi everyone, Ethical Hacking Lab 3 for you guys that are doing level 6 ethical hacking. So we're going to look at Nmap and one or two other things. So let's have a look and see what we've got. To start off, Nmap, short for Network Mapper, open source, works off Linux. It's in Kali, so with your Kali installation that you've got, you'll be able to run it. And then basically there's some information there about how it was created and what happens with it and what it can do. Host discovery, operating system detection, service version detection. As you can see there, it's got a couple of tricks inside it. It's a pretty neat piece of kit. The other piece of kit that we'll be using today alongside Nmap inside Kali Linux is an OVA file. Now, in terms of working with Kali Linux, that's going to be our one operating system where we're going to be doing some of the work, but we need a target computer so that we can actually see what's going on with the target machine. So from that perspective, we're going to use an OVA file, which is a pre-installed virtual machine, in order to set up our target computer that Nmap will eventually end up scanning. So just to be aware of those things, that's what we're dealing with so far. So you should have Lab 1 and Lab 2 done already, which means you should have VMware installed, Kali installed, and you should know how to network them. If you haven't gone through those labs, this lab won't make any sense. So make sure that you're there with labs 1 and 2. And then go on to Moodle and get the target OVA file. And as you can see here, it's called EH_level6_lab3, etc, etc, etc. It's on Moodle, so download that. We'll be using that in due course. Looks a little bit like this when you've downloaded it. I've saved my file onto the desktop. You can put yours wherever. But whatever you're dealing with, to basically run it, you don't need to install anything, you just need to open the file as a virtual machine. So as you can see, hopefully there, we've got open, and then when you go on open, it will say browse for and find the file that we're dealing with. Click open, and it will say about importing the virtual machine as opposed to installing, which is fine. Click import, and then what will happen is this particular OVA file as a virtual machine will appear on your virtual machines list. So far so good. So Kali Linux, run that first, wait a couple of seconds, then power on the target OVA as well, then wait a little while, and then log into Kali. Don't forget your username and password, and then when your target OVA is running, you'll see that it's a Linux virtual machine. When the booting up process is pretty much finished, it's going to look a little bit like that. So if you've got that, you'll know that it's working. The first thing to do would be to configure IP addressing. And so we're dealing with using VMnet 15 and an IP address range of 192.168.15.0 for the network, /24 for the subnet mask. So Kali's running. I've used IP address show to work out what our IP addresses are. And as you can see with the configuration that we have, using VMnet 15, we've got an IP address there that suits what we want. If you want to check your virtual machine settings, that wouldn't be a bad idea. What you need for your setup here is custom VMnet 15 to be on network adapter. Okay, so if that isn't set, it needs to be. Make sure that it is. You should know how to configure Kali networking because of the previous labs that you've done. If you need to go and have a look at the virtual machine editor, edit virtual network editor, click on change settings, go to VMnet 15, make sure that the IP addressing is configured accordingly, which you can all see down there. So make sure that you're happy with the settings that you've got. That's fine, click OK. So there's our IP address with Kali, as we've seen before, but there it is again. I've got 15.128/24 from the DHCP that's built into VMware, which is fine. And then what we're going to do is make sure that the networking is also configured on your target machine. So again, if we go back to the target OVA virtual machine and have a look at the settings, make sure that you've got your two network adapters on here. VMnet 15 for the first network adapter, NAT for the second network adapter. Make sure that it's set exactly like that, or else you may have problems. Okay. Now, if you do have problems, it's probably to do with that configuration. Okay. So I was doing some testing with different configurations, and I can tell you for sure that they won't work or won't work properly. So please make sure that you've got the settings noted above, and the notes are inside that video, as in that page, and that page for your two network adapters for that particular VM. Any problems with it, or if things don't work, try restarting the VMs, rebooting the VMs I should say, or try restarting VMware Workstation Pro. It should work, however, you should be okay. So on our target OVA, let's find out the IP addressing on there. So what I've done is I've hit return and I've got myself a prompt, as you can see there, IP address show, and then can you see that we've got 192.168.15, and I've got a host address here from DHCP of 131. Could have been a different IP address, 129 or 130 or whatever, but if your IP address is different to mine, that's fine. But in the notes, I'm using 15.131. If your IP is different, you need to put your IP addressing in. Okay? As long as I've got an IP address though that's in the same range, I'm pretty happy. So do a ping test, ping from the Kali machine to the target, and you might as well go the other way as well. Can you remember the ping command? Hopefully you can. There it is. And there's a successful ping from our target OVA to Linux, to Kali, I should say, Kali Linux, and then going the other way, we've got a successful ping from Kali Linux over to the target OVA as well. Happy so far, successful, there we go. Now that we've got the networking sorted out, we can start running our network map, Nmap. So follow the commands exactly as you see inside the notes, and then what will happen is Nmap will start and you will get some kind of response depending on the different instructions that you put in. So first off, we can see that we've been able to find the two machines that are on the network. Take a screenshot of that, put that into your portfolio please. No gateway address this time, fair enough, that's what we can see. Now we need to now see if there's any open ports, so we're going to run a fast scan, which is -F, on the IP address of the target machine. Again, don't forget your IP address might be different to mine. And we get some results, which is some ports are open. Excellent. Now if you get a scenario whereby all ports are closed, you have a problem, and what you would need to do is probably check your network, your VMnet 15 settings. Okay, if you do have any problems, that shows that you've got an issue. Please go and fix so that you make sure that you get a return of some open ports. And then put that into your e-portfolio as a screenshot. So let's see what else we can do. Let's see what we've got in terms of what we can see in terms of web browsing. So open up a web browser. Instructions are there on how to do that. It will end up loading Firefox. You start with that, but then what I want you to do is type in the IP address of the target with :80, which is opening up port 80, and it should bring back a web page. You don't need to log into that, just seeing that for now is fine. A screenshot of that would probably be necessary. But then what we'll do is we'll try changing from port 80 to some of these different ports to see what's there. So it turns out that if we use port 21, we don't get a response where there's a website. 22 gives us the same thing. Try these different addresses, 53, 88. Turns out that 88 will find something. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. Put a screenshot of that inside your e-portfolio. Try the rest of the other ports. Again, see what happens. What we're trying to do here is get you guys used to using Nmap and seeing what it can do. We'll be developing this in future weeks as well with future labs. But what we're going to do is do some more scanning with some different options. So, running this particular type of scan goes through the network and tries to see what IP addresses are actually up and running. So again, have a look and see what Nmap can do. Now if you see here, 128 and 131 are missing off the list. It's because they've actually got running IP addresses. That's fine. We'll scan all 254 IP addresses in the subnet and also scan the broadcast as well, you never know. It would look for open ports and tell you various amounts of bits and pieces of information. Have a look through that and see what information you can get. What else can we do? Okay, let's run a different sort of scan. Didn't work the first time. I waited a bit, I tried it again, and it again was able to tell us a little bit about these open ports and give us more contextual information about them. Again, it's up to you to have a look at the information and to see if you can start to interpret it. And of course, interpretation is something that will also take a little bit of practice. But for now, see what it gives you for all these different sorts of Nmap options. Seen a few of those, happy days. Let's have a look at Metasploit, Msf, the Metasploit framework. So a slightly different thing this to Nmap. Metasploit allows us to do different kinds of exploits. So we use Nmap to find out where the exploits could go, and then we use Metasploit to send the exploits out. So we need to start the Metasploit framework database, instructions there on how to do that. I've typed in clear, by the way, to clear my Windows, my Linux window, my Linux terminal window screen first, okay? And then I've ran the starting of the service. You may or may not need to authenticate. If it turns out that you've mistyped something, it probably won't find the service, but all things being well, you should be okay. Slightly itchy shoulder, just deal with that. So nonetheless, if you've got a problem with the service not running, check that you've typed that command properly. However, it should allow us to move forward to setting up the database when it starts to run, so we need to initialize it, and then it will start. And then what we have to do is launch the console. And what happens when you launch the MSF console is it starts to run, and then it brings up this Metasploit screen, and that's Metasploit running. As you can see, the prompt has changed a wee bit as well. I'll have a screenshot of that in the ePortfolio, please. And then have a look at the help command, have a look at the use ? Command. Again, just see what's going on inside there. Just get you to have a look around, learn a little bit about some of the stuff that's inside there. And then we need to actually start using these exploits. Now at the moment, we just really want to show you around this package, okay? So we will get you to see what is going on, and we'll get you to hit run with a particular backdoor being used as an exploit. However, what will happen is it won't actually take. As you can see there, the exploit failed. Payload has not been selected. Now, for the sake of where we are at the moment, if you can put a screenshot of that in, we would be happy, because that's as far as we want you to be able to go with this lab. We will do some more work using exploits with the next lab that we will do next time. So if you can get to there, that will be fine. For the sake of this lab, getting the result at this time is expected. If you put a screenshot of that in your ePortfolio, we would be happy. Now, it says here about if you don't get access, what might be going on. Well, you can do a little bit of research and see what you think, but suffice to say, I've got something else that I'll just show you here, which might pop up next week, is I've rerun the MSF console again. I've gone through those commands that are in, and it turns out that there is another thing that you guys could have a look at, which is show payloads. And again, it's these payloads that we'll start to deal with over the next week or over the next lab. So as it turns out, I've got some stuff there that I could run, but again, we don't have this set up at the moment that we're going to have a successful exploit. That's a future lab, so don't worry about that. That will be fine. Okay, a nice short video on getting you guys started on using the Metasploit framework and using OVA files as target files and using Nmap. And for now, that is enough for you guys to get started. Get your ePortfolio sorted out and onto Moodle, and hopefully, all things being well, we'll show you some actual running exploits in the next lab next time around. Thanks.